What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. Hey everybody, I want to give a big shout out to a new sponsor of the Golf 360 podcast, and that's Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms and their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model that's also often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns and little attention. At Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts, not just advisors, who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Call Affinity Wealth today for a no-cost consultation with one of their experts at 724-754-8200. Again, that's 724-754-8200. Or you can also check them out on the web at www.affinitywealthmg.com. That's AFFINITYWEALTHMG.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. All right, everybody. Very, very excited about today's guest because she is probably one of the most positive and upbeat people that I've ever been around. And it was just such a pleasure to sit down and talk with her. We talked for probably at least 2 hours. In addition to, this was in my home studio. When guests come in, we have a big dinner spread. We do a big barbecue cookout. So you consider the time that we spent catching up at dinner, and then going into a couple hours of the podcast, and we probably could have talked for another hour or so, but she had a very long day on the lesson tee, and I needed to let her go home and rest and be with her family at some point. But her name is Krista Dunton, and she has been considered one of the Golf Magazine top 100 teachers in the country for quite some time. She is a PGA and LPGA member. You have probably read one of her articles in one of multiple major golf publications throughout the years. She has won awards at every level, and is just a wonderful ambassador for the game. And even with all the success she's had, she has never let that diminish her desire to learn and improve and pass all those lessons on to her students or anyone else that she feels that she can help so that they can also improve and have the success and reach the goals that they want to. So just a very, very enjoyable interview. I think her positive attitude and her outlook on life are really going to come across in today's show. And as with many of the guests that we have on, she is really going to endear herself to you if you haven't met her or might maybe not know who she is. So please give it up for today's guest, Mrs. Krista Dunton. Okay, rocking and rolling. We're all good?
All good.
Welcome to the show, Krista.
Thank you.
We talked about it for a while. We
I
finally
know,
got
finally.
the schedules together.
Finally.
Scheduling has been the hardest part, but very excited to have you on. You're always positive, upbeat, high energy, and always been a big fan.
Well, thank you.
You know, we were talking right before we came on, the number, it's awesome living in a low country, and you lived here, what now, 20 years?
Just under that, probably about 16.
And I've been here pushing 30, and it's such a wonderful place.
Yep.
But when you look around, because, and we talked about before who's been on the show, and you look at the talent pool of coaches that we have here. There's you, in just the top 100, there's you, Andrew Rice, Tim Cook, I don't know, Rick Barry, I don't know if he's still in it, but
he's still on there. If not, he's on the
time.
emeritus,
Right.
but he's, yep.
Jonathan Yarwood.
Yep.
Gary Gilchrist was here for a while with IJGA. And it's like, okay, in this little area.
Right. And then Dana
Rader's now at Belfair. And then David Lepore's top 100.
Right.
And he's at Colleton. So it's like, you have your pick of who you want to be with.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And, you know, you understand as well as I do that the local PGA group gets along phenomenally well. It's not like everyone's trying to steal everybody else.
Right.
It's not cutthroat. And
right.
I always saw it as one of the coolest things around here.
Yeah, it's for such a small area, and it's unique, I think, with the plantations and the way the housing is designed. You know, like I started my teaching up in the Northeast, New Jersey area, and between the New Jersey and the Met section and Philadelphia, a little bit further south for me, you know, unbelievable number of golf courses, maybe not as many top instructors, you know, more so maybe up in the Met section, but New Jersey, so many great golf courses, great PGA professionals, great history of playing professionals. Mm-hmm. But I would teach people from all over, up from Manhattan down to Philly kind of thing, where I taught was right off the turnpike. You come down here with a smaller, more condensed area, certainly not the population, but so many great golf coaches, golf instructors, great golf courses, but in smaller, like contained plantations. I think it's also unique. Like when I left Belfair, and I had such a strong following there, it was a great opportunity for me as a teacher to come down from New Jersey there. But I would say very few of their members came and followed me down the street 2 miles away. I mean, I think people like to stay.
Oh, there's no doubt.
They stay within their community, right? So, you know, I think that helps. In one sense, it helps maybe with the success of the number of instructors that we have because they've got enough pull from their neighborhoods. I mean, I still teach a good number of members from all over on the island. Palmetto Bluff, I've got a great clientele from over there. Berkeley, obviously. So I still feel like I get a good cross section, but I do know people like to stay where they can get their golf cart.
Well,
they can get to in their golf cart.
That
and they've
goes,
got enough good teachers that sometimes they don't need to go.
Right, and that goes, if you look at every development and community around the area, that right outside the gate or within a mile to two, there's a grocery store, a liquor store, and a dry cleaner.
Yeah.
And you're right, people do not want to go far.
Right.
It's like a 10-minute drive. No, I'll wait for the weekend. I'm not going. If you're in Bluffton, you're like, I'm not going to Hilton Head. I'll go on the weekend. If
where I
Hilton
know
Head,
when you're playing career, and I know in mine how far I would travel or drive or fly to go see a teacher or a specialist, you know, you don't even think about the distance.
Right. And once you live here for a while, it's like, I'm not really going to do that.
It's crazy.
So you're at Berkeley Hall now.
Yes.
And you split time between Berkeley in the most of the year and then Greenbrier.
Yeah, I'm up at the Greenbrier only really. It's shortened up now as the years kind of go on. But maybe during the really hot months, about July, maybe it's only about 6 weeks away. I do some golf schools up there, a little bit of teaching. But part of that time for me is to get away and work on my own game, spend a little more time with the family and kind of a down, just more of a down low scale. It is nice because I do work on my game quite a bit and play a fair amount there between the courses up there, the sporting club we're members of. So I get to play the Snead and then the TPC, the Old White course right at the Greenbrier and get out and walk and carry. And it's, like I said, it's nice to work on your own game. You know yourself. I mean,
Right.
You've got to get in the shoes of your students, and it's good to get out there and practice and play and, get prepared to play some tournaments. I need to kind of keep playing more competitive events because I think I learn every time I'm under the gun. All right, what are my weaknesses? What are my tendencies? How do I need to be a better teacher and coach for my students from when they're playing under pressure? Because it's so different from the range to the course, and then the course under competition, then the course at a higher level, at a local level or a state or a mini tour level to a tour. I mean, it just keeps going up.
It never ends.
It never ends.
Lauren Anderson and I had that conversation last week where he said, because he comes in contact with more great teachers probably than anybody on the planet.
Yeah.
And I say, the starting of this podcast was very nerve-wracking for me. I'm not a techie by any means. That's why I got Connor over there. But and I tell everybody the story. The first interview I had was with Mike Harmon, and Mike can talk with the best of them.
Yeah.
And he's rolling for an hour and a half, and I look down, and the record button was never pressed.
Oh, no.
I mean, so that's my first. I'm scared to death to begin with, and that's my first experience with the podcast.
That's funny.
But and Lauren, the thing we were discussing was when I got done playing and I was giving a lesson, I had a person who was more or less a beginner. They're 30 handicap, and we had just worked on wedge game, and we went out on the golf course, and they were 10 or 15 yards short of a creek or little stream, whatever. And then there was the green, and they were terrified. And I'm thinking to myself, what is the problem?
Yeah.
You just did this for an hour.
Yeah.
But then it hit me smack dab in the face. It's like they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
They haven't crossed that bridge yet.
Totally.
To your point, it does not matter what level you go to.
Yep.
It's like starting over again.
Yeah.
How did the Greenbrier thing, is that something that you would vacation there, or was that something?
Yeah, we just kind of we'd get up there and vacation a little bit, and it just kind of evolved. I've done some golf schools. Jim Hardy's come out there. Mm-hmm. We've done some specialty golf schools. We had Jerry West, actually, one of our golf schools.
Nice.
He's a member up there, and it was funny. We had one of the clients in there was a client of mine from Hilton Head in there, and they were going to do a little financial piece on it. And then Jerry joined the golf school on day 2. Well, we sat down at lunch, and this financial group was going to kind of present. They were kind of help sponsoring it. And then all of a sudden, Jerry started talking. Someone asked him a question about Kobe or something. He just went on and told story after story after story. And he looked at me and said, "I'm not opening my mouth. I can't follow that." I mean, he was a delight and very competitive and works on his golf swing.
Did when you were going up there, did they find out who you were and that you were on property, and then
it just kind of evolved, and then it's a fine line because it's been a nice compliment where I could do some teaching up there, but they also have their staff that they're trying to stay afloat. So it's a blend. I don't try to overstep and just kind of flying in there and try to steal a lot of business, because the assistants, the people that are there, that's their time to
right. And you're going there to relax.
And I'm going there. I'm kind of my downtime. So now that the time's shorter, it's really. And this year, I think I was up there for 2 or 3 weeks because with COVID, we were here, and then once things opened, it got so busy that August was slammed. Usually we're dead in August, and people were just starting to get back out and play, and felt a little safer to come out and take lessons. The whole COVID thing, the people kept playing golf, but in the beginning they weren't taking instruction.
Yeah, has that changed for you?
Totally. All of a sudden it got to like we lost the spring. Any teacher obviously, that. So we lost the spring, but then people started playing, and Berkeley was kind of in its bubble, and they kept guests out, and I think each community kind of tried to protect their own little bubble, and they were playing. I mean, I looked at the tee sheets. Tee sheets were packed. Everyone was playing. No one was going anywhere, but yet no one really was taking any instruction. Then for whatever reason, things kind of, I think the trust level, or people felt a little more comfortable, and then all of a sudden the lessons just kind of came and picked right back up, and
no one got sick. So
no one got sick, and it's been kind of busy ever since.
Do you go through protocol? Do you wear gloves if somebody?
I don't. I really have been. I mean, I'm respectful for the clients coming. And you think of our age group,
right?
They're mostly all over 50, right? So it's probably majority, 40 to 70 easily, 50 to 70, and a lot of the instructions outside. If we do go inside, I make sure, like the look in video or doing technology, we're spaced apart. I'll keep a mask handy if I need to, or if I feel like they're more sensitive. A lot of fist bumps, but people were still coming out, putting out their hand to me, and it's funny. It just, I think they had felt a sense of safety, but you can't be too safe. So, you have to respect what people, I felt like if they were here, but I want to kind of create a safe environment for them. So, yeah, we did try to follow.
One thing I want to ask you about the Greenbrier, did they still have that bunker there?
The underground bunkers?
The underground bunker that was for Congress?
It's not. I took that tour years ago when it was still, they kind of let you go through quite a bit of it. They've kind of toned it down a little bit, but it's still there.
And that was for it.
That was to hide Congress,
right? To hide Congress in case there was a nuclear. That was in the Cold War.
Yeah,
right?
And it kept going. They had to pay for that. There was financing for that up until I think the 80s or almost 90s. So they would have to keep a full hospital down there or a full. They had to keep just in case you had 250 people that had to come down there and get underground and get out of there. They had to keep things stocked and operational.
Could you imagine in today's political climate? All of the Congress going underground
they kill each other, right?
And having to face each other on a daily basis.
But I even think on 9/11, I do think they brought, I think they brought some people through there. And, it's still semi-accessible, but for the most part, the tours are still there. Yeah. I mean, but it's not fully operational the way it was.
The guy who, he's the coal guy. I think he was governor.
Jim Justice.
Yeah. And how do you get to hang out with him
No.
at all? He seems like a really cool guy.
Yeah, kind of. I've heard mixed things about him. So, everyone has their opinions. It's hard to say. He's done a lot. He did a lot of great things for the property and for the people of West Virginia. The tournament. I mean, he had the PGA Tour event there for a number of years. And I'll tell you what, the first few years, I mean, Tiger was up there, Sergio was there, Kuchar was there. Mickelson was there. They had these amazing concerts that he sponsored. I saw Red Hot. There was there. Maroon 5 was there. Ton of all the top country western bands were there. Black Eyed Peas, Lionel Richie all the time would be there. Tug McGraw. I mean,
that's amazing. This resort in the middle of the mountains, and all these people.
Yeah,
go. And
he doesn't always have the best
decades.
reputation of paying his bills. I will say that.
Oh.
So
maybe what was he given $100 a birdie?
Yeah, I mean, but those days were great. The early days of that tournament, 100 people, $100 for a hole in one. So it packed the bleachers. The concerts were amazing. It would cost a couple million to put on these concerts. That's what I'm saying. The early days of it were amazing, and I think the players enjoyed it because they'd stay right there on property.
Right.
They could walk down the street, and the wives and the kids enjoyed it. I mean, I think it was tough finding the schedule, finding the right place because it was around the British.
Then they had the rains and everything.
Then the flood, and we were there for the flood right before Matthew.
I remember you had the pictures on social media.
Yeah, so we were there for the flood. The kids had to be carried out by a neighbor because the water got so high, and we saw. I had never seen anything like it. So to see that creek kind of bust, I went out, tried to look around and see the water level, and within 5 minutes, boom, it came up to about mid-height on the car. I was carrying things to the garage. The kids were scared. We would look on the back porch and you could see the golf course just being engulfed in water and the creek rising. You go in the front and, the first step, and the neighbor came by and said, okay, if the water level gets up, there's like 4 steps. And if it gets up to like the 3rd step, I'm going to come over and get you guys out of here. And sure enough, and you just didn't know I had never been there. I grew up in California with earthquakes.
Right.
And you know how high it would go, and you'd start to see there was a house that came down the creek on fire. And then it was awful. So then, we got out to higher ground and ended up getting up to the hotel, but it was water up to waist high. I mean, it was 4 feet. And then the next day, the damage really was in the town of White Sulphur, and it was really devastating. Those houses were right at creek's level and just got wiped out. Our backyard, there were people's belongings, baby strollers, bathing suits on it. I mean, you just saw, I found old family pictures, black and whites from, turn of the century. I mean, it was really devastating, that community. But I will say the community and the members at the sporting club and the people who could financially had the means to do it really stepped up, helped out that community of White Sulphur, which was an old, really working class, not, a lot of people just didn't have a whole lot to go to. And it came in so quickly. So they rebuilt a whole community called Hope Village, about 5 miles down the road, up elevated, gorgeous land. And they really whole community really stepped up and came together, which was nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's all the crazy shit in the world that goes on. There are a lot of good people out there.
Totally.
And I think that the bad stuff is a very, very, very small minority. The rest of the world, not just our country, the rest of the world is very, very good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you had mentioned growing up in California, and it was around the Stanford area, right? Mm-hmm. So what was the reasoning to go to almost all the way across the country to college?
To New Jersey?
To college, because you went to University of Michigan,
I went to University of Michigan, yeah. So my mom had grown up in Michigan.
Okay.
She went to Michigan State, that other school in the state. Was a great athlete there. Was a 3-sport athlete. Played tennis, swimming, field hockey, I think. Mm-hmm. And the day she graduated from Michigan State, she packed up her car and drove out to La Jolla and taught swimming and tennis out in La Jolla, and met my dad, who was in the Marines, and he was in Camp Pendleton, and she was out body surfing on the beach, and that's where they met, and they eventually moved up to Northern California. My dad coached at Stanford, so that was kind of our connection there. He was a baseball coach. He was a pitching coach there for 35 years.
And your brother played pretty high level.
Yeah,
sports,
he
right?
played minor league ball, kind of got up to AA. And then they all played. My the other brother went to Michigan. He played freshman year basketball there. And then the middle one played at UCLA baseball. And then the younger one played at Santa Clara baseball and a little bit of football.
So what was it like telling your mom that you were going to go to be a Wolverine?
Well, my older brother had gone there first. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of following down. And when he was in college, I was probably like in 6th grade or so. So I had Michigan notebooks. I had Michigan sweatshirts. He'd send like Michigan and, ice, and it would come in a little container. It was water, obviously, by the time I got there. But so I think I looked up to him quite a bit. And so I think from my mom being out there and he from him going to school there, that kind of kept the tradition. I played a little volleyball, so I wasn't good enough to play in a California school, but I had the opportunity to go and try out for the team at Michigan, which I didn't make.
You played in the golf team? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I battled, and I played golf for so long as a junior, and there were a lot of good females in Northern California that were playing junior golf, and a lot of us ended up playing professionally. Probably a handful of names that ended up going much further than I did and played on the LPGA, and we all kind of started in the Northern California area. And it was really kind of the first opportunities, I think, for girls, probably late 70s, playing junior golf. And in the high school team, I was the only girl on the state, on the team, first one to kind of compete. And I think I always put added pressure on myself. I got to prove myself as a girl, and the only girl on the boys team. And so I never really felt like I played as well in competition as I felt like I could. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of quit for a couple years. And then I started working with Wally Goodwin, who was a men's coach at Stanford, who had just come there, and he was the one who recruited.
He was a legendary coach there.
He was great, yeah. He would tell me stories. He's like, oh, I got this kid. I'll never forget. He started writing him. I got this kid down in Southern California. He was in 7th grade. He started writing him letters. And he's got the coolest name, Tiger. And he's writing recruiting letters in 7th grade. And Wally he came from Northwestern. Great people person. It's a big old cowboy with jeans on and the belt buckle, and be great with people. And then he'd say, I got this other kid, great player from Oregon. He's got a bad leg, never complains, carries his club, Casey Martin. Mm-hmm. And he'd say, I got this other guy. He's Native American. Stanford used to be the Indian, Nota Begay. So it was kind of fun to hear as he was recruiting these guys and how well they ended up, playing and what the careers that they had going on. But he kind of encouraged me to keep playing. And so I started working my game. Michigan's team wasn't that strong at the time. So I was able to make the team and then get a scholarship. And Michigan was well funded, obviously, academically. Right. And we had a great time. It wasn't, academics obviously were first, but it was a great opportunity to play at a higher level and compete within the Big Ten and just kind of have that whole college experience.
Your favorite course of the two, Radrick Farms or the Donald
great
Ross
question. I used to play Radrick with my uncle who was out there. My aunt and uncle, my grandparents were out there. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge part going to Michigan too. I got to be a lot closer with my grandparents on my mom's side and my aunt and uncle that were out there on that side of the family. So to me, that was really important. I was leaving California, but I was gaining a family through relatives, which I think was huge. But my uncle would take me out to play Radrick in the fall, which was gorgeous.
Great call.
But Ann Arbor's course, Alistair McKenzie course, but we'd have like qualifying rounds on the weekend. And all right, you get relief from the briquettes and the burgers, because it'd be after it was where they would tailgate and park the cars.
Park the cars there. It's amazing, isn't it? It's a McKenzie
1 and
golf
9.
Course.
And then on Sundays we'd have qualifying rounds, and the fairways would be all beat up. And they've put a little more money into it now, and I think they took out a lot of trees, and I haven't played in years.
The first junior tournament in Michigan, almost every year, what was it, April, and the weather's real iffy.
Yeah,
up
oh my
there, right?
gosh.
And it was at that golf course. I never played good because I didn't want to play golf when it's cold out.
Did you grow up in Michigan?
Yeah, just north
I
of
didn't
Detroit.
know that. Really? What town?
Utica. Mm-hmm. Sterling Heights is the big one most people know about. But it was there for 20 years and down here for the rest.
Wow. My old roommate, Barb McQuaid, was from Sterling Heights.
As soon as I could, I was out of there.
Were you really? Yeah, I had a good friend of mine on the dorm was from Utica. That's funny.
I mean, I miss, you miss the friends
and
things like that. In fact, I got a group of them coming down in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
We're going to have a good time. You played after you graduated. You went to the Futures right away, or you did something?
Yeah, for the most part. It was interesting. I graduated from Michigan. Played okay, but not great. I remember our last Big Ten championship at the Scarlet Course at Ohio State. I remember finishing that and being really down and not feeling like, I really did as well as I would have liked to. And I was actually on the West Coast. Where did I meet? I was actually interviewing for jobs in pharmaceutical sales at the time. That was kind of an up-and-coming kind of career. And so I was kind of reaching out to all the big farm companies out there and, hit and miss. And then somehow, I think I started doing some work. I was still hanging around Stanford, and a woman, Jackie Birch, came in town. She played on the LPGA Tour, and she was running these women clinics for women executives, and that market was really starting to kind of take off. So I started helping her with some events and event planning and started running it out there. And then I said, well, I feel like I'm trying to run a company without ever having worked for it. I feel like I need to learn a little bit more. She said, well, actually, that was before I was playing. So no, fast forward. So right when I graduated from Michigan, that's actually when I went back and saw Wally Goodwin. And he said, don't give up so quickly. Actually, the Jackie Birch, that came after playing. But he said, go out and see this guy, Ed Oldfield. And Ed was kind of like the name in women's golf back then. Taught Betsy King, Jan Stevenson, Meg Mallon. Let him go out, look at your games. I flew out to Chicago. He was at the, where was he? He started the Merit Club. He was at Glenview. He was at the Glenview Club in Chicago. Then he opened years later the Merit Club where they had a Women's U.S. Open.
Right.
So he said, okay, well, you've got this and this. You need this and this. Come down to Arizona. You work on your game in the off season. So I had an orange 1974 VW Bug. And I don't know how I felt when we were talking about moving. I took everything I needed in a Volkswagen Bug. Plus my mom drove down with me. So she had the front seat. I think I took one place setting, a plate, a fork, a knife, a glass. I had to have my golf clubs in there. I'm sure I didn't have any money to ship anything. Fit everything in there, probably whatever clothes I needed. Found a little studio apartment. My parents were generous enough to kind of help get me going and fun. My dad would kind of pay my rent, get me going there. I worked diligently with Ed, and it was interesting. He would have like the big people, there's tour players, and he had a bunch of mini tour players, and we were like the little people. And we'd be out there for hours at Orange Tree, banging balls. Oh, is he going to show up today? Is he going to show up today? And you just waited. We didn't like schedule a lesson with him. He was generous with his time, but looking back, I wish I'd rather have allocated money. Right. Okay, give me an hour so I know what to work on. It was good. It was a good and bad experience. Good in the sense that I got to meet so many great people. I got to hang around Betsy and Jan and Meg and watch them work on their games. The great friends that I met on the other end that were chasing the mini tour like myself. Mm-hmm. Bill Reed was the director of golf at TPC Scottsdale. His girlfriend, Cindy Reed, who's now gone on great teaching in Asia. So he got me a job at TPC parking golf carts for $3.35 an hour. So another friend of mine went to Northwestern. So we're out there at 5:30 in the morning parking golf carts from like 5:30 a.m. to about 8 a.m. But then we get full playing and practice privileges. So we end up spending X amount in tuition, and here we are, parking golf carts. But, he was a stickler on detail and work ethic. He was a great professional. So I learned whatever we did it right. Boom, we got out of there. We had full playing and practice privileges at TPC, which, with the number of tour players that come out there,
right.
We could use the back of the range. We could practice. On my golf swing, Ed probably wasn't the ideal instructor for me. Those days we didn't have a lot of video. I didn't have a chance to know what my swing was like. It was like his way or the highway. I mean, you kind of just trusted, do this or, so he just, in hindsight, understanding what I know about the golf swing now, I wish I kind of knew now what I knew then when I had a lot of desire and I had some financial backing. So I played about 5 years up and down, some decent results. And, it was a great experience driving around driving through the country. And
yeah, it is.
Oh my God, before the big cell phones, the CB, you sleep and rest. There's no way my kids, I was 21 to 25 years old. Looking at a map, I was telling my kids yesterday driving home from Asheville.
Atlas in the back.
The big atlas. The highlighter. How am I going to get from Arizona to Iowa or Iowa to, New Hampshire? And okay. And I don't know how we did that. Nowadays, so different.
I was dating a girl one time and I met her dad and he said, "Where'd you go to school?" I said, "Well, I was a Rhodes Scholar."
That's
and he said,
funny.
"You're a Rhodes Scholar?" I said, "Yeah, I-75, I-10, I-94, 80. I said, whatever interstate you want. I was on the road all the time.
Oh my gosh. And we would, $20, you could make it last forever. You know what I mean? It was nuts. Sleeping in rest areas, and thank God for private housing and the wonderful people,
When did you realize that it was getting close, or it was that wasn't the path for you?
Yeah, I think just not seeing the results I needed to playing wise, missing enough cuts, getting kind of frustrated, seeing girls that I felt like I was better than beat me and not playing up to my full potential. I think now understanding about my golf swing and how into out it was, and I had no conception of the forward part of the arc, basically, technically, and I hit, I was strong and athletic, and I hit probably big sweeping draws and, but a lot of thin iron shots, short game, being that much from the inside and the path out to the right. So the wedge game would get kind of skeptical. Right. And Ed, I'd never forget the favorite drill was having me do these little extension drills and kind of down the line. So the more extension down the line just kept shifting my path more to the right. And it just propelled where my tendency was. So, and I think from there, I would work part-time in these Stanford golf camps doing some teaching. I think from my parents both being coaches and great communicators and my dad being a pitching coach, and my mom having the teaching background in her career, I think that was kind of always in me. And being competitive in the player, I didn't want to give that up. But I also started to think there's probably another path out there. So that's where I kind of started to run those business clinics. And then this Jackie Burt said, "Hey, there's a job opportunity in New Jersey, and they're looking for an assistant golf pro. And we're going to be running these LPGA or these women golf clinics out there, women in business." And that's when businesses were really starting. This is like mid-90s, early 90s, really starting to put a lot of money into their women's initiatives and getting women on the golf course. So I flew out to New Jersey. Again, I had relatives out there, which helped. And the guy, Billy Z, great player in New Jersey, top player, and consummate professional. He probably has put the most Class A pros into head professional jobs of anyone in New Jersey. So
and was this at Princeton?
Yeah, I lived at Princeton. It was at Forest Gate Country Club.
Okay.
So center part of the state, 8A off the Turnpike. And I probably went in there with the least amount of experience. Sandra Palmer interviewed for the job, people with much greater playing experience than I did, but I think he saw something in my passion and my desire. And he gave me the opportunity. So I, again, kind of packed up whatever I had and moved out to New Jersey, and I stayed with my aunt and uncle out there in Metuchen, and it was a 20-minute drive down to Forest Gate. Worked as an assistant pro, and in those days you were probably working 80 hours a week and getting paid for 40. There was no, no labor laws going on. And we'd sit on the steps at 8 o'clock at night and being there since 5:45 in the morning going, okay,
Do it again tomorrow.
But that group of golf pros and assistant pros, and we really bonded. They're still friends of mine today, 20 some odd, 30 years later. And we were in that environment. Billy kind of kept a pretty, led with an iron, not an iron fist, but he had high standards. And all of us, I mean, they're all moved on to great jobs in the golf industry, and they all went to achieving high things. A lot was under kind of Billy's leadership, but we stayed together and worked together. I mean, now people are in and they're out, and
Right.
it was really a community. And then he gave me the opportunity to kind of be in charge of teaching, and then the teaching. Then I just became, I had this little push out, the old JC, the little
JC
compact
video.
JC video system. So they'd call it my ATM. I'd wheel that baby out and park it on the front of the range, and I wouldn't leave. I'd teach sun up to sundown. People would have to bring me food because I wouldn't take a break.
Is that when you realized teaching was your thing?
Oh,
Was
totally.
your passion?
Yeah. And so pretty quickly, I wasn't in the golf shop anymore, and I was just out there teaching full time. I was there about 9 years, almost 10 years at Forest Gate. And the nice thing was I could teach anywhere from Philly to Manhattan. I mean, you're on the turnpike. It was a semi-private club. It was great. It was I'd probably need to give back some money back in those days because, I was really learning and kind of but at the same time, I was learning as I went. So in the off season, and Billy said, "Hey, go down and watch this guy, Mike Adams, teach." So about my second or third year there, filed for unemployment, went down to Jupiter, Florida, slept on my cousin's couch, went out to PJ National where Mike Adams was. And PJ National at this time was a mecca for golf schools. And I mean, Don Sargent, Kelly Stenzel, Jerry King. I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 names there that were teaching that all are on the Golf Magazine Top 100 list right now. And they were all underneath Mike. So I would sit on his teaching tee. He offered me a job to teach in the golf schools. I said, "No way, I don't want that." I said, "Then I wouldn't learn as much. I'm learning
Right,
more
because
just
you're working,
being
you're not
sponge."
being able to pay attention.
Right. I just, I'd fill up notebook after notebook. And so he was doing a lot of biomechanics stuff and how the body works and individual styles and his laws, his leverage, arc, and width swing. He was kind of a cutting edge with technology. So he had some of the old A-Star big video systems, and Mike Bentley, who ended up going on and doing KVS. I mean, he was there. It exposed me to so many great people. Plus, I could see how multi-level golf schools were run. They were a factory. They cranked out those golf schools. So I could see, all right, how does he efficiently run a golf school of 25 people with 5 or 6, full-time staff, and then other ones underneath as subordinates, and how do they set up for putting stations? How do they do a bunker presentation? Rick Jensen was there doing the mental game. What's his name? Who was doing strength and conditioning? That's in Sea Island now.
Randy Myers?
Yeah. I mean, the list, it was an amazing group of people to learn from. So I did that for maybe 4 winters and really created a great wealth of knowledge.
So you just went down there
to
on
learn.
your own dime.
On my own dime, yeah.
Basically like going back to school.
Yeah. So I took the winter time just to learn and improve my teaching. And then went back up to New
That's
Jersey.
something that's almost unheard of nowadays. Yeah. I'd have...
But I would never have gotten anywhere if I hadn't,
Right. You try to tell
and
people
I saw
that.
Mike at it. I mean, Billy sent me to him, but I also saw him present at the PGA teaching seminar. And I said, boy, this guy's brilliant. He presented on the leverage, arc, and width, like 3 totally different body styles, swinging the club on different planes and things they need to do differently in their setup to help them individually. And I said, I need to learn more. And so that's kind of how that came to. And then fast forward, 5, 6 years later, I go to another PGA teaching summit, and there's Jim Hardy. And I'd gotten to know Peter Jacobson. We played in the skins game at Forest Gate. And Peter came in and Johnny Miller. It was me and Johnny paired with Peter and another female pro. So I got to play 3 holes with him and with Johnny Miller. So I'm on the first tee, nervous as can be. Peter watches me swing, and then he starts to give me tips as we're walking off the tee. I'm like, I'm just trying to keep it in the fairway, Oh, you got to get more left. You got to turn through it, and I'm probably out there, thrusting and swinging it way out to right field. And so anyway, the teaching summit that winter, Jim was a keynote speaker, and he presented on his 1-plane, 2-plane swings and the differences in two sets of fundamentals almost, and 2 ways to kind of swing the golf club. And again, I was like, well, this is brilliant. I need to learn more about this. So I went up and spoke with him, kind of used Peter as, as a little click in and tie in together. And he said, well, I'm doing these the teacher clinics in Arizona. Come on out. And so Jim would do these teaching the teacher. He'd bring in about 12 to 15 teachers, and we'd just go there for like a week. And he would present, and we would learn, and we'd work on our own games and hit balls and work on the information and learn, just work through it and learn it to kind of sun up to sundown. So I started doing those for the next few winters. And then he started a certification program, level 1, level 2, level 3 with his Plain Truth. Mm-hmm. So I was the first person actually in North America that got to level 3, which is kind of their highest tier, kind of his inner circle, he calls it, to get their full certification on that. And there's a couple other gentlemen, good friends of mine in the UK, that got this level 3 at the same time.
Mike Adams and Jim Hardy.
Yep.
And TJ Tomasi.
Yes. TJ was there too at PJ
National. Yeah, they all had, like, I know they wrote the book, and they kind of were all working. They were all working in unison, but all working on different things. Mm-hmm. And I thought that'd be interesting to go back.
Definitely.
And I never knew that you worked on there.
Yeah.
Or would go at least learn from them.
Yeah, totally. TJ was there. So to be able to pick his brain and learn what he was doing and watching him present and being able to watch different students, even though they were under kind of Mike's guidelines, or leadership, but then finding their own way. I mean, and like I said, the list, it's unbelievable. There's probably 6 or 7 that on the top 100, like I said, Kelly Senzel, Don Sargent, Jerry King. I'm leaving out some names. It was TJ Tomasi. There's a few ways, like 2 others too. They'll come to me as we keep talking.
Right.
But great group of teachers that all went on to accomplish great things, and they're still teaching.
Who would have been more of a mentor? Would it have been Mike, or would it have been Dr. Hardy?
Oh, I don't know. They're both of them in different ways. And both, I think what I took away from both of them, and they're both Mike and Jim, I would say, and they're good friends. They respect each other. Mm-hmm. They're both very mindful within this industry, and they're 2 gentlemen that I respect that don't badmouth other instructors. They're okay with other instructors. They may not agree with what another teacher might be teaching, but they're not going to rip that person apart, which, number 1, I totally respect that. Number 2 was I watched them both teach. They're teaching a 36 handicap with the same passion as they do a tour player, because they're both obviously working with tour players and amateurs. And I think seeing that passion, energy and attention to detail that they gave, Mrs. Habersham and, Joe Tour player, that meant a lot.
And Mike has his certification. Did you go through that program too?
Yes, bioswing dynamics. So I was in kind of on the ground floor of that as well, which was great, with a whole great group of people. Mm-hmm. And I'm still doing that. During COVID, they went through, he and Terry Knowles kind of did a whole wonderful kind of educational program during COVID. That's one thing during COVID. It was nice to jump in and get more education and knowledge without having to go travel. It may change how we do a lot of seminars and learning, because
I can see. I think they could get more people, because the cost then comes down, the overall cost.
But you don't see the face to face. We talk about young teachers, and like you said, that's kind of unheard of.
It's weird.
I'll watch myself, and I'll feel myself having like mannerisms that Mike would do, or Jim, just watching them, how they stood or how they react. You just watching someone day in, day out, and teaching and communication and how they read a personality. Totally. One of the things Jim brought in our certification program through the Plain Truth was a woman named Jennifer Munro, who's one of the top personality profilers in the country. Mm-hmm. So we spent 16 hours just working on her, teaching different personality types, how to read people and how to change us as an instructor. We need to be the chameleon. So I need to be able to read someone as they come into me in my first few questions in an interview process. She uses colors, red, blue, green, and yellow. So red is your dominant personality. You better not say a whole lot. And when you do, it better be right, because they're short-tempered, short patience, high achievers,
Very driven.
Right. So
type A.
Totally. And they may not even take the whole hour. Okay, got it. I'm gone. I know what I need to do. Which you like, but you're not going to take them down a road of exploring.
You never say, let's try this.
Right. You better make sure what you say you're going to see a difference in the ball flight pretty quickly. Blue is going to be more social. That's a people person. That's a relationship. They're going to want to talk. They want to chatter, blah, blah, blah. And, obviously I'm very blue. So that person I probably get along with very easily. Green's going to be your analytical.
Right.
You're overthinker, and you can't give them too much information because they're going to overanalyze it to death. Yellow is your more traditional safety. Don't want to rock the boat. Going to kind of go with the flow. Probably majority of our population a little more yellow. So, and people in Jennifer's, you're not just one. You're mixtures, but you're going to have
With
high
a
dominance in
yeah.
one and maybe a low in another. So it's a pretty in-depth. And Jennifer, anyone that's interested, Personality Matters is her book that she came out with last year. It's a great read. She does profiles online. They're very in-depth, even though they're simple, maybe when you take them, but what she comes back with for the report is very extensive. She works with a bunch of tour players on the PGA Tour, and I know has helped them extensively kind of play to their own self.
I think in the world in general, things are getting very specialized. Like you have oncologists and you have oncologist surgeons and you have oncologist surgeons just for the brain or whatever body part. And golf seems to be falling in line with the same thing. And you have to have a specialty because like your career, you had that move that the person at the time who was the guru just didn't
wasn't
relate.
good for me. That's, But look at the information they have now. I mean, it was so different. And I didn't know. Jim was funny. He'd say, he's a worst duck hooker. He couldn't fix a hook if he, wanted to. But he was generous with this. And he was, for some, he was a brilliant teacher. And he was, I owe a lot to him. I mean, he was passionate in teaching and gave a lot of his time. And it was just the time that we lived in. Now maybe there's too much information and players can get sideways because they go on the internet and they don't know what applies to them, right?
Yeah,
so
internet's like a giant.
If I was a tour player now looking at, oh boy, my ball's going right and, not knowing the root cause, and you might have 20 fixes for it,
I'm a big fan of Mike's Adams. And I didn't find him until a few years ago. But I didn't have the scientific stuff behind it. I didn't have KVS, I didn't have force plates or TrackMan or anything, but it resonated with me because I would always tell people you have to swing the way you're designed.
Totally.
Right. And I was doing it very, just studying, like I think I wrote an article one time about you have to swing to your type. Like Rocco Mediate, Hal Sutton gravitated to Jimmy Ballard.
Totally.
Okay. They're going to have to move off the ball. They have a big hip structure.
Right.
They're barrel chested. They're thick individuals.
Right.
Curtis Strange wasn't, but okay, there's an exception to the rule.
Yeah.
And then you got a guy like Sean Foley, who's most of his guys who perform well are thin. You got Sean O'Hare, Justin Rose.
Yeah. And Butch that maybe goes higher
and Butch
up
goes
and wider,
higher,
more
it's
width.
like So it's like certain ones can
and some of
swing
the
certain
European
ways.
guys and teachers, more rotary, more
Pete
average
Cowan.
build, more plane and more wind, keeping the ball down.
So but Mike's seemed to check all the boxes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if you're this way, here's why you're going to swing it. At least to me, the things that I was coming up with, it resonated. And I'd like to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Either go down to, I think he's in Jupiter.
Yeah.
Coming up in November or now in the winter.
Yeah, he's in Jupiter in the winters in New Jersey in the summer. I mean, Mike has done so much for my career. Mike Adams and Jim Hardy. I mean, I wouldn't be, every day I'm playing in my head certain things that I've probably learned from them and from either of them, both of them. Mike, both of them, I would say the other thing that impresses me as teachers is with minimal technology is how they change ball flight right away. Mm-hmm. So the sound of the ball, the flight of the ball. Jim, more old school than Mike as far as technology and masterful in getting a person to change within 2 or 3 shots. That ball is struck with a different sound and a different flight without the person changing 20 million things. Like he knows 1 or 2 keys and how to communicate that to the student to get them to change it. Mike's probably used a little more technology that says fingertips, which has been great combined with, with the body type stuff. But I've seen him without any technology on the range and the same results.
I'm surprised more bigger name players I have not utilized either of those.
Either of those, yeah.
I
agree.
That to me,
I
that's
don't know
a
how much
mystery.
they want to be on the road.
Yeah,
and
I
think
is a different.
that's
in talking to Andrew when Andrew was on, I said, "Who is he working with?" And he said, "I don't want to go and sleep in a strange bed in a strange place. 13 weeks a year. I don't want to do it 1 week a year.
Right.
He likes his bed.
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
Yeah.
So those I
think you find your niche, and I think Jim and Mike enjoy. They're both, I think, best known in our. I mean, obviously Ledbetter and McLean all those guys that have really been pioneers in the teaching that have brought so many people underneath them and helped so many. And I think they might get as much of a fulfillment. I mean, I can't speak for them, but knowing how many teachers they've impacted,
right?
You know what I mean? That can help others. So it just spiders, right?
Almost a pay it forward mentality.
Versus just helping. I mean, I think that's a different nut. The person that's on the road dealing with tour players, working with tour players is a different deal than working with amateurs. I mean, and it's just, and I think it takes a different teacher animal that wants to be out there, that is okay with being away from home and on the road and having some of that stress and how they perform, how that player performs. And, I was listening to a podcast Sean Foley did with Brett McCabe the other day, and, he made a good point. He said, if you can't put their performance, good or bad, you can't let those highs and lows, they'll drive you crazy, because the weeks that they're totally on or the weeks they're not making a cut, you just don't know, and you just have to kind of stay your course.
And there's so many variables at that level that can throw. I used to tell people playing at such a high level is equivalent of driving. If you were driving in an Indy 500 car at 140 or 50 miles an hour and you hit a stone, you could die.
Yeah.
It's going to throw you off. But if you're in your SUV and you're idling through your neighborhood, you don't even feel it.
Yeah.
But so I try to relate that to them, to say at that level, the smallest thing can throw somebody off, and there's a lot of small things that coming at them from every direction. Another thing is that the higher the level of the player, the smaller the window to see what they're doing wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're swinging so fast that they can adapt so quickly, and you really got to know what you're doing, because you can screw somebody up. That's a livelihood.
The only good thing with them is, number one, their bodies can do usually what you ask them to do. They're such God-gifted athletes, that they're not probably that far off. So if the change is correct, I think you should see a difference in the ball flight pretty quickly.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And they should adapt relatively quickly, especially if it's the right thing.
Right. I just feel badly for those that get on tour and then forget, male or female, and I've seen it happen to plenty of players, that and different people that they're working with, that they start to change so much of what got them there. I'm like, if it's good enough to get you there, I'm not sure
it's
at
like
that point.
They have this vision that once they get there, they've made it. Now they have to change,
to get that much better.
Something else.
And then to go play under the gun and the heat, I just enhance what you already did and maybe strengthen other parts that might be weaknesses, whether it's short game or putting or mental.
I listened to Chris Como the other day on somebody's podcast. I don't remember whose, but they were asking about Tiger and changing his swing. Like, Chris said that to him, the best swing was Tiger 2000.
Yeah.
Right? What he did and how he did it and how he dominated. He said that the swing, that was always the hallmark. And they asked him, well, why would he change it? And he explained that Tiger was always looking to get better. But Chris brought up a very good point, that no one ever looks at the other side. It's like, well, how many players didn't modify what they needed to, and it would have saved their career?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because either they never sought it out, or maybe they didn't have the right people, or for whatever reason, maybe they're stubborn. Right. No, I'm not going to change. I mean, remember Mickelson said, I'm not going to change. I am who I am. But then he did modify. You don't have to change, but he did modify.
Yeah, Fowler's modified.
Got with
Sergio's modified. Yep. Certain players have kind of modified and tweaked to make them more consistent without maybe losing the blueprint of their swing. I mean, I think Tiger just has that analytical side to him. He's probably that green-red combination that's so driven and kind of wants to know and chasing just to be the best.
Dan Hellman and I had this conversation when I was down to see him one of the trips, and I said, look, here's my theory on Tiger, that it was not so much his swing mechanics, but I said, if you look at the track of his life, especially when his dad got sick, he really wasn't working with anybody then, but when his dad passed, it's not just that his game was kind of on a walkabout. It was a mirror of his life. And then for me, his dad was his structure in his life. And when that was removed, I thought Tiger was kind of looking for it. And who he gravitated to is Sean Foley, who I think is a wonderful teacher. I'm not taking anything away from Sean, but I think Sean was too structured for Tiger, and his creativity wasn't utilized enough. And that's just the differences, I think, in Sean and Tiger. Again, nothing, if Sean hears, anybody knows Sean, I think the world of him. And then you look at, Tiger goes through his, whatever he went through, and then he went through the injuries, and he had that time to heal internally. And then he meets Como, who's more adaptable, and it just seems to blend better. And then once he got on his own, seemed to be when he was healed, mentally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it. And that's when, it just started. He came back, he started playing well, and then it just snowballed from there. But what I was telling Dan was, I said, I think if you look at who he gravitated to, it was what he needed in life at that time.
At that time, man, I think you could say, I think that's life, right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of...
timing is everything.
The people that come into our lives a lot of times are the ones that... And we don't always know that, what we're looking for and what we need.
Are there any teachers that you follow now, or you enjoy learning from what material they have, or you don't have, with life getting in the way? And
no, I'm still always learning. I mean, obviously Mike and Jim, I'm still working and learning on their stuff. The guys,
or even other things. Nutrition and fitness. I mean, there's club fitting.
I do a lot with PN Lynn and Vision 54, so I've done a ton with that, and that's helped me so much, and so much with my students. It's just managing people's emotions and their thought process on the golf course, and managing their human skills, and blending kind of technical and human together to kind of get peak performance. So that's probably a big part of what I've been doing. I like some of the stuff of that athletic motion AMG golf.
Yeah, those guys are pretty good.
Yeah, really good. And I like how they've used gears. So I'll watch what they're doing and that gives me some good insight and ideas. And I think they're really good. And so that's Sean Webb and I'm trying to think of the other gentleman's name who's really good. But I'll kind of keep paying attention to them.
Scott Hamilton's up there, I think, either at the same place or really close.
Similar,
I think he uses a lot of that stuff.
I always keep my eyes and ears open. Terry Rolls, who's working with Mike Adams. Terry's a great instructor. Kind of learn from what he's doing. I think you can't stop learning, right?
No, so in today's world, it used to be you need, go get what's come out and learn it, and you take your year or two and really get it down. Now, it's just flying by.
Right.
There's just so much, like, what do you pick?
Right. Well, and I think you got to watch you don't overload it, but it's like building the toolbox. I feel like if I can get, I'll try to learn enough ways to get things done, or create a different ball flight, or what other teachers are having kind of some innovative ways to accomplish this, changing the ball flight, and how many different ways can I have to say it? Because one way isn't going to fit everyone. So if that approach doesn't work, I've got plenty of others, whether it's a communication style or whether it's a technical change. So the more adaptability and ways I can be to adapt to the student, I don't ever believe that here's how you have to do it, get it done.
Right.
I've got to have enough. I've got enough. It's like having 20 languages I could speak to be able to communicate to that person. Well, it's the same thing communication style wise, and plus technically. I've got to know, Mark Blackburn's a great instructor. I've got to pay attention to kind of what he's doing, anyone that's up there and putting good stuff out. But I think you can't be limited into just one way.
No.
You've got to be able to know, because certain things, it's just so different.
Not anymore. There's just too much competition, right. Too many good people out there.
I looked at Genghis' stuff and get a kind of feel for that. But I also didn't like watching him at the Top 100 Summit when the two players got worse instead of getting better. So, obviously that's not necessarily a reflection of his teaching, but he was probably tried just to show his method per se, which was fine. It's what he believes in. It just may not be right for everyone, or it might need more time from some people. But I've certainly used how he uses the lower body and some transitional moves, and using the ground differently for certain students that need it. It's just more ways to get the job done.
Have you ever seen a meteoric rise like his? He went from basically nobody knew who he was out of Southern California.
I know, it's just crazy.
Was he debuted at 11?
Right.
And I've said this on the podcast before. I think he's done some great things.
Yeah.
I think even more so the young people he's developing.
Yeah.
It's more that culture that they have out
totally.
there.
Which is good. And I love these on a public range, on mats.
And he hasn't changed.
Right.
Even with all the notoriety.
And he's got great energy, and part of that's why people like watching him, and energy's good. It's kind of fun and hip. I
had a friend that went out there and took a lesson from him and said he was there, Tommy Armour was right before him, and then there was his lesson. And he said then he had like 2 or 3 juniors, and he said it was the same energetic. It didn't matter who was in front of him.
That's great.
Did everything he could to get him better.
Yeah, good.
And that's what you want.
Yeah, totally.
And it's good to see the success. Are there any theories, as we talk about who do you follow and who's doing what in the teaching world, any theories that you have that you've been working on or that some contemporaries might think are crazy?
So much of what Jim and other teachers, I think it's gotten more popular now, but so much of what Jim Hardy and his right arm inward throw, and that I found has really helped so many people. I think there was an error in there of so much left arm, and he will classify as two types of releases. A left arm outward pull, which might be a little of a steeper delivery. Club kind of stays on the left arm playing longer. Might have a lot more shaft rotation at impact. That player might hit more hooks and fades and work the ball a little more because the face is it's going from either the open side of the arc to closing rapidly, or it stays a little more open and stays open and maybe fades it. So a little more timing involved. But that player, the handle would also get much higher at address and impact. A lot of stronger players can kind of hold off that handle and turn pretty quickly.
Right.
And a lot of amateurs that just don't have the strength and athleticism, that probably becomes a disaster because they're still kind of and it just isn't working for them. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So for me, if I've got a player that's more rounded and is coming, the club head's already kind of gets behind their right arm in the backswing. I want that arm working more inward, and instead of more of a pulling motion, it actually has more of a throwing motion. So the head kind of gets
Centrifugal
thrown.
force gets picked. Speed gets picked up.
Totally. And it's probably more right arm dominant than left. The handle's coming more inward. So the hands come more inward to the body. That's the I. The R is more R right dominated. The I is more inward instead of outward. And then the T for RIT is more of a throwing action than a pulling action. And especially if you've got someone, like I said, who kind of has more of a rounded swing versus something more vertical and up and down. And you can just see the club is kind of so many players. It gets stuck on the left arm playing instead of some crossover and getting it over on the right arm. And that's when Hogan said he wished he had 3 right arms. Or,
right.
He finally, when he was driving down the story goes that Jim tells, he was driving down the road one day. He said he stopped hooking it. Finally, he said, I'm going to try to open the face as hard as I can the backswing and close it as hard as I can the downswing. And his effort to close it was a little more of the throw and getting that club going left more to close. When actually he did it, the club got more on an inward left path. The ball, he'd look up and it'd just start to fade more. So the more he got the club head releasing on an arc inward left, he'd start to hit the nice kind of control fade. So different than pulling it over their left, which gets wipey.
It's amazing, all the different forces in the swing and everything going in different directions.
Yeah.
Not almost simultaneous, but at different firing sequences.
Yeah.
And you think it happens, but what really happens.
Yeah. Yeah, totally different. Same thing with pressure. I used a lot with the pressure plates and swing catalysts, and just seeing the difference on good amateur players or good young players and how that pressure shifts dynamically into their left side early, and how they use the ground to kind of create some energy versus, our traditional mid-handicap player that just hangs back and feels like going laterally is sliding. They're afraid to slide, so they're hanging back and they're just kind of back footing it. So it's just kind of how to use the legs athletically. But that's the same thing with some of that throw. It's just, if you're going to throw, you're going to shift left and pivot and then get the head releasing. So, and it's taking tension out. I think I watch a lot of tension on players. I think amateurs, God, they just think tighter, harder is better. And they don't get kind of this, how much these guys and gals are creating speed by a good rotary motion in the body and kind of whippy arms that are letting that club head get delivered with some speed.
You don't get speed by clenching.
Right. And that's what this guy had today. Squeezing. I mean, classic example. I had a good athlete in there today, and he said, well, I'm trying to kind of go harder. I'm like, every time you squeeze and pull on that thing, you just put the brakes on that club face.
I've told many of people, force does not equal speed.
Right. I'll tell them, like, I want wide receiver arms, not middle linebacker. Or you look at the pitcher, lanky, whippy, fast arms versus, you don't see a 250-pound lineman probably can't throw a fastball the way Tin Lincecum, for the Giants, it's kind of whippy, wiry, 120 pounds soaking wet kind of thing. So yeah, so it's getting, and that sometimes that's hard for people to get through their head, especially when you see the physique has changed on the tours. You know, men and women are they're more fit, they're stronger,
much
you know,
stronger.
they're used,
Mobile,
but they're
flexible.
but they're using. But it's the same thing if you watch football. Those guys are so much faster and stronger, but faster. You know, and they're still strong, but there's speed in there too. So it's both. They're firing with kind of both guns, so to speak.
What do you, as you talk about that, what do you think? Because NFL obviously has an injury problem, especially the concussion issue. Now that dates back to many years ago, I think, where they were trying to hide in data and so on. But as athletes are getting bigger and stronger and faster in a contact sport, the rate of injury is obviously going up when they're running into each other. I have the theory that swinging, because it's the big thing now, swing faster, get bigger, get stronger to protect yourself and let the governor and the brain turn off so you can move faster because it feels safe. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm stepping back and saying, at what point are the body's going to start breaking down?
Yeah, I think you got to be careful.
Torque and everything on the discs are not meant to
I mean, look at Tiger's knee and his history. I mean, you look at videos, how hard he snapped that left knee and the knee and the hip issues. So, you know, I would always challenge people. I mean, you got two motors. Arms in the club are a motor, body's a motor. You know, like I do trick shots all the time, driver off my knees. And I get driver off my knees probably close to 200 yards. So, you know, you're hitting balls with your feet together. And how far can you hit a ball feet together, getting your arms relaxed, creating arm speed, and then okay, now let's kind of get the larger muscles, let's get the body going, but let's blend both motors. I mean, you know, I think the body motor's key, but the hands are still hanging on to the golf club. So I think it's a total blend. I think for more, you know, I think at a higher tour level, sure, being efficient with lateral, vertical, and rotational forces and making sure they're peaking at the right time and using things like swing catalysts to kind of measure that and see that on a fine-tune, you know, area is really key. But I think for the average player, God, get their arm motor, they should be hitting draws when their feet are together. If you're not turning the ball over right to left with your feet together, so your arms are kind of, in a sense, kind of closing the club face and getting that squared up and closing it. When you add the body motor, the body's just going to be opening that face. So I'll always tell people, go hit balls with your feet together, get that ball turning over right to left. Then let's add the hips and the chest rotating and turning correctly and use the ground efficiently and get the pressure left soon enough, you know, to create a little more power and some speed.
Right. What do you see in teaching and coaching that surprises you?
Sometimes just people miss the obvious, you know, or they're not really finding out what the person wants. You know, sometimes they want to know, they've got their ideal, but maybe Mr. Jones just wants to drop his handicap by 2 and get back to being 18 instead of a 21.
Enjoying it again.
Yeah. So maybe that's not a major overhaul. Maybe that's changing the ball position a little bit or strengthening his grip a teeny bit or dropping his right foot back so he can turn a little bit more. Or, you know, sometimes if someone's struggling, you know, let's find the easy way for them. Let's not make it, I mean, the game's hard. I mean, there's a lot going on. So let's find, and I think that's, you know, one thing I think I pride myself in is trying to find the most efficient way for a student to improve without having to break down and change everything. You know what I mean? And the technology is wonderful and I love it and I use it a lot, but I think we have to be careful that we don't overload people too quickly and we build building blocks and that they're getting better quickly, you know, and not struggling. And also let's see what they do on the golf course. How are they thinking? How are they managing their emotions? How are they managing their tension? So that's a different world from the range to the course, you know, as you know too. So can we get people on the golf course? Can we get our juniors on the golf course and playing more and teach them like these 2 girls I had tonight? I mean, it was great getting them on the golf course. You don't realize certain things that they just don't know. I mean, you take for granted, I think, so much. So to really see
and as
how they
teachers
process.
and coaches, you're on the range and I think too many people fall into, whether it's ego-driven or they want to validate what they're doing, whatever the reason is, their sole purpose is to get the student to just hit the ball better.
Yeah.
And that gets lost in the shuffle of, okay, but what if they're, like you said, they're trying to lower their handicap from 18 to 16.
Yeah.
Just hitting it better isn't
always going to do it, right?
It might not be what's wrong.
Totally.
It could be.
Then you find out like, oh God, they're
thinking,
horrible. They
their
three-putt
course
every green.
management,
Yeah.
or their putting, or
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
And I think coaches in that respect become their own worst enemy unknowingly.
Yeah, I think we've got to really know what's the goal of the student.
Mm-hmm.
What does the student want first before we get our intentions in there, and then how can you best help them, and how can you also, when they leave you, how are they going to process that information, and how are they going to use it on the course?
Yeah, and I think that goes. You said that earlier about asking questions before the lesson gets started, and determining what kind of person they are, and the language, so to speak, that they're going to comprehend that information.
Yeah,
be able to utilize it.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk about. You do a lot of growth of the game for kids and for women, a lot of ladies clinics, mm-hmm. and I think it's a wonderful thing, obviously. What do you see that's lacking in more women in general, or in kids? Either or question to get into the game. If you were the almighty Krista and they gave you a magic wand, what would you do to wave it and change that?
For women and for kids?
Yes.
For kids, I think to get out and play more with other kids and get away from their parents, mm-hmm. and even their teachers sometimes. Get out and just go play.
Go be a kid.
Go be a kid. Take a handful of clubs. Who can get the ball in the hole, the fewest number of strokes, however you can do it, and quickly. I think slow play is killing junior golf, and I think we have to be mindful of that. I think we have to keep the fun factor for kids, and not, I don't want that to be a job for them too quickly. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the golf's a lot. I mean,
Doc Brett McCabe always said it is a hard game.
It's a hard game, and it's a lot. It beats you up a lot. So there's got to be enough enjoyment out there and fun to get over those hurdles. Mm-hmm. I think the personality type that succeeds in golf tends to take things a little more internally and how they process things. And some kids are better at that than others, but I'd probably like to see the game grow. I love what PGA Junior League has done. Sometimes right. I think we got to be mindful of the pace of play on it, but I love having it come as a team sport and kids coming together and playing a 2-person scramble. So I think if kids can, like these 2 girls I had out there tonight, I brought them out there a lot so they could get to know each other and go play together, and get away a little bit from the parents and just having one person playing it. Do they have enough friends that are playing? I think finding some friends and companions, just go and play, regardless of kind of the score sometimes, but enjoy playing the game and challenge yourself.
And in the progress and the arc of your career, did you, as a woman in a mostly male-dominated industry, mm-hmm. did you have many challenges that people just didn't want to help you? It doesn't sound like it, but
not really. I've been pretty lucky, but I've also,
But you also grew up with brothers, too.
I grew up with brothers. Yeah. I remember.
You knew how to handle yourself.
And Susie Whaley and I talk about stories when we were, because we're, similar growing up, similar kind of age grouping and being in PGA, going through PGA education with, a handful of women and 250 guys, mm-hmm. I remember in one of the classes, the guy saying, "No, and you got to hire a cute shop girl. That's a necessity, and just don't get her pregnant." And Typical, the things that would come out of their mouths, like "Hello." And I remember playing, the PGA. I was the first female to play in our PGA, section event when they opened it up, for women, and did fine. And the guys up there were great. I had to have enough, I think, thick skin that I didn't mind putting myself out there. Mm-hmm. There's certainly more opportunity. I think playing with the guys makes you better. I would challenge any of the girls I teach, go and play with the best high school boys. Go play with the boys in your block because they hit the ball hard. They're creative around the greens. They might tend to not be as cautious on certain things and kind of play with a little more reckless abandon.
Yeah, you might learn something.
Yeah, totally. So, I think I've been lucky in a sense, but looking back, I had to work through it for sure. And there's a lot of women kind of in my same shoes that, in kind of my era that maybe hung in there and had to break through some walls. But we had enough supportive people that I think helped break down some of those barriers, thank God.
In everything that you've talked about tonight, and it's the things that people today don't want to do. You went and you learned on your own dime from in your off season from some of the best. You were very resourceful. You didn't let somebody else's horrendous view of the world and the differences in the sexes hold you back.
Yeah.
And it just amazes me that more people don't take that mentality.
Yeah.
Because the only person it comes down to that's holding someone back, unless they're in a very rare situation, is himself.
Yeah.
And their perception and the way they look at things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have it. I mean, you got a lot going. You're obviously very successful in your profession. You have a lot of awards and you do a great job. You're a mom. How do you balance all these things?
That's hard. I'm coaching my kids' teams, and I'm kind of pulling away a little bit from that, even though I kind of miss coaching some of the baseball and then coach some of the soccer and coach some basketball, and that's fun. And my kids are getting at an age at 9 and 11 that they may not always want me on the field coaching. Certainly, I've kind of pulled back. Obviously, Grady's baseball skills are, I have fun playing with them, and probably at some point we have to pull back. My parents, I think, were good at them stepping back and letting others coach me and fitting that role. And I think we all as parents need to kind of then be a parent and just give that child the love and support and not always play that coach. Sometimes it's hard because as a coach and a teacher, I'll know the things I want to instill in my students. And sometimes that's harder. It's harder as a parent to kind of put that on your own kids. Mm-hmm. You almost have to hold that back maybe for your students and not your children and try to be a parent first and not a coach.
Susie and I had a very similar discussion
and
about
that's
that
hard.
I asked her.
I think that's hard because there's certain things well, you need to be doing that. You need to be focused. You need to be, but maybe that's not they don't want to hear that maybe from you. Maybe they just want to say, hey, go have fun. Go give it your all. Go, meet you for an ice cream after. And to me, I think that's hard because the knowledge that I know and the people that I follow in sports and that are achievers and competitive, and you want to bottle that up and give that to them, but yet somehow I found it, and I don't feel like my dad or mom pushed it on me, at least that I wasn't really aware of. So you kind of almost have to be that back. You have to stay back a little bit. And I think I'm learning it as I go. I think now it's probably key.
There's no instructional manual.
No, there isn't. But I think knowing that, I think you want to do the best on your kids. But I can see how by pushing that too much, you'll push them away from it. Mm-hmm. So, I think, and now at the ages they're getting into, whatever, all I think you want for your kids and for any of your students is find something you like and be passionate about it. Right. It's like listening to, Brett McCabe you've had on before, and, he talked about 3 things, and, the kids were in the car, so I kind of slowly turned his podcast up a little bit when I knew he was going to fire out some nuggets. And, it's 3 things of success. One was the first part was do the small things. Mm-hmm. Do like the little things. Whether you said chase education or get the detail stuff, and I'm not a great planner. My deficit is I'm probably not the best goal setter or the best planner. I'm good on my feet. I'm good at in the moment. I would probably help myself by being a little more structured. Mm-hmm. People that know me, that's probably not my MO, but I know I need to be better on that. So that might be somewhere where I can improve. But his point of just kind of doing the small things, setting yourself up for success and whatever that might be, being prepared for a lesson or knowing, being in the moment with that person. 2, embrace your individuality, not to be a conformist, but be who you are and be what makes you special. And then 3, kind of don't quit. You struggle, pick yourself up and go. And there's coaches that my kids have now that I see those traits in the messages that those coaches are delivering. And so those are probably more the people I tend to try to push my kids towards so that they're delivering the message. Maybe instead of me and I can play more that parent role, but maybe they're hearing it from other people that might resonate better.
It's got to be some satisfaction that you're pulling away is coaching them and being supportive to them. And then for your own growth is that, it takes, I don't have kids, my brother, but I have all my friends have kids that I can see it, and I've coached enough kids and been around enough parents to say, you've got to almost have just as much discipline in not asking why they just 3-putted the last hole.
Yeah. And I am not the best at that. I certainly...
Right, because like you said, they do, that's the last thing, that they're mad enough. If your kid is competing and they're your offspring, you know you're a competitor.
Yeah.
You know that they're doing the best that they can,
Yeah.
and it frustrates them just as much that they didn't
Yeah.
play good as it did
Absolutely.
us or you or
Yeah.
whoever. But what I'm getting at is there's got to be, when you stay disciplined enough to be the parent and say, hey, let's go get some ice cream.
Yeah.
Or let's go to a movie, or let's go do this.
And those are, I mean, that point is huge. And I need to be better about that, because I know the teacher in me, the coach that will want to fix it and almost diagnose the diagnostic part of it and break it down and learn, okay, let's be better at but that's not what that child needs, especially as my own child probably doesn't need from me right now. And so,
Right.
That's a work in progress. I mean, at least I'm recognizing it now and am trying to improve on that.
But it's got to be gratifying that when you do it, and then 3 months later or a year later, and then it actually, that you see them eclipse and achieve. And then
you can see them putting the time on their own. Like, I'll try to push my son grading, hitting off the tee every day, or doing the stuff that, if his hitting coach is working on something, is he putting in the extra time? But I had to give him the space to be able to go find it instead of me nagging him to go do it. You know, I mean, let that passion kind of come from him on it.
It's got to develop. I think so many people in today's world with the information are pushing so hard. And we're,
it's hard.
as Doc Brett says, today's modern athlete is bombarded, as we all are, with so much information. You got emails, texts, phones, everything constantly, social media. And it's like, no one ever settles down and lets things settle in.
Yeah.
If you're always jumping to the newest thing and pushing yourself, it's like, okay, well, what develops in?
Right.
You're working externally and you got to work internally.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think about my parents and both teachers, and my dad being a pitching coach. I played a lot of Little League, had a lot of success in pitching. I mean, he worked with me, but he was coaching his own teams, and I was happy when he was there being able to catch a game and see it. And, he obviously had desire, but he wasn't pulling me aside and critiquing everything I did. Right. And, and here we had 4 kids, and all of us played D1 schools and all scholarship athletes. And in an era where, I mean, granted, is there more competition now? Are things different? Yes, but we're fortunate, I think, to grow up in that innocence a little bit. And we all played multiple sports in high school. Sure, we start to specialize, especially my brother's probably a little more in high school and going up. And at some point I had to kind of gravitate more to golf and not play, soccer as much, or softball, baseball, anymore. And so you kind of picked your own, but growing up it was 3 sports, and my parents were supportive. And so I probably need to keep learning from them as we go and let the kids kind of find their way a little bit, but you're right. There's so much information, and there's a lot of competition.
Right.
And there is early specialization. I think that's going to come back and bite us more. I'm really a big proponent of keeping 3 sports going, but it's tough. The colleges are recruiting earlier. They're signing people earlier. The putting more pressure on the kids to kind of specialize.
Yeah, the whole system is going against what should be done.
Yeah. And you listen to other people in the industry that say no, overuse industry and burnout, but yet what are we changing to make that achievable? Mm-hmm. Are we encouraging people to do more sports? Are we, these programs, they're money makers too. Tennis year round, soccer year round, travel programs, baseball year round. I mean, my son's almost playing baseball year round. My daughter isn't. I'm probably lighter on her. I probably push him harder than her. And she'll probably end up, knock on what, she'll find her own way. And I don't know, am I harder on the boy than the girl? That's interesting. But, they're, just letting them find their way a little bit and find where their passion is.
Yeah, it's a big thing. And I like I said, I don't have kids, so it's easy for me to say you need to let them do their thing and not be the parent all the time. But I'm not in that situation.
And our junior programs, I mean, you look at competitive junior programs and the AJHA events, and kids are getting better faster. But how much burnout? I still think golf's neat because I think you can peak later. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping you still can. I think you look at number 2 players that maybe didn't pick it up till, or start playing a ton till they were in their teens. And, who knows? I mean, I'd like to see us get back to that, because that's a game that you can keep playing for so long. So
absolutely.
I'd let the kids be athletes.
If you wouldn't have become a teacher and a coach, what would you have done?
I wanted to be a vet, actually, be a veterinarian. And then I went to Michigan my freshman year with all chem and physics and all the science. I was like, oh boy, I'm getting beat up a little bit with all these pre-med majors. So I changed to communication and marketing. I don't think I would not be able to go to an office and sit and be in this. I'm not good probably at staying the same thing every time. Mm-hmm. So it probably would have been something innovative, something that's kind of changing and evolving. I mean, that's why I like what I do, because I don't have to go, I can't be in a box 9 to 5, punch a clock, do the same thing every day. I like variety. I like the difference, having someone new almost every hour, doing golf schools for a small group and staying with them for 3 days and seeing them evolve, and then having another group come in. So who knows, with technology, maybe I would have done something in some kind of startup company and kind of...
You'd be back in California.
Yeah, maybe back in California. Yeah, right, with all my Google friends and Facebook friends that are, 35 and driving their $200,000 cars. No,
Teslas.
All their Teslas. That's it.
Where do you see teaching going in the future? I mean, technology has come so far, and you utilize a lot of it.
Yeah, I do. I'm not as good. I kick myself every day because I need to put more content out there on the internet. And I probably just need to set a camera up there and film myself teach, and then trim some of those nuggets and send them out, because I feel like that's when I'm at my best, when I'm with a student. When I have to kind of film and do something kind of canned, I mean, I can do it, but it's just, okay, I got to set the camera up, I got to get a mic, so I get lazy with getting it done and shooting out content out there. But I think there's so much, people are gaining so much information. I've seen some of my peers' careers take off via the internet and better exposure. But I also think I've seen plenty of people that have come to me and said, I've taken this online lesson with this person, or I've studied this on the internet, and they don't have a clue of what they're fixing and how to fix it. You know what I mean?
It just sounded cool.
Until someone kind of gets their hands on them and moves them differently, or shows them, no, you're okay there. This is what needs to happen, or the club needs to be in a different position here. So as much as the technology is helping us and the information age is out there, and virtual lessons, boy, I still think that face-to-face is kind of key.
Have you got on the bandwagon? Because you have enough of a following that you...
Yeah, I haven't been very good about that. I need to. And I need to grow my following a little bit bigger. I need to put more content out there. I need to strengthen... I know all the things I need to do. I just need to dedicate. And that's kind of one goal this fall and winter, is to kind of get it done. Because I'm letting things kind of fly by, and I know I'm missing some opportunities and some exposure. I've been fortunate enough. I've always been busy where I've been, and kind of word of mouth and kind of a little more grassroots. But there's so many more people out there. Berkeley and I are partnering together and doing some 3-day golf schools, and they're getting behind me and promoting. And we did a great video that we're just releasing out there. And I think if I get on, I can produce some more content, instructional videos. And just to bring more people down to the Low Country, to come stay in the cottages that we have at Berkeley, to maybe look at a membership if they're looking at that, or a national membership, or just come experience golf in the Low Country. Our facilities, between the dining, the cottages, the learning center, 2 golf courses, 3 days of instruction with playing every afternoon. I mean, it's a great experience. So
yeah, it is. It's a great
That's
place.
one thing I'm really excited to kind of get behind and promote those. And I think... past COVID, I think those small golf schools are coming back. And I think we lost them for a little bit, but I think they're coming back to us.
So more videos, anything? Are you going to do a website where people can you can do where they send it in?
They send it in, and I do online instruction right now. I need to probably do more of that. I think there's ways, I'd like to do more, almost like FaceTime, where I can communicate with that student and see them instead of me just producing something. But you might have a club in your living room, or in like a little net or something, and I can kind of talk you through it a little bit,
right? And
they can see me demonstrating. So it's almost like teaching someone who's in front of you in a COVID era, where maybe you're keeping your 6 feet, right? And doing that with a live camera. If they can pop their phone on FaceTime, I can pop mine on, and we can exchange that way. That way they can hear me communicating. I can see how they're taking the information, how they're processing. Are they overdoing it? Are they underdoing it? And kind of doing something that way, I think, would be beneficial. Because the player left on their own is tough.
Well, they're just going to tinker.
They tinker, or they go down a road, or they get the information from, say I do an online lesson, I'm kind of doing a voiceover. I don't know if they really exaggerated enough to make a difference, or, you know what I mean? So I think you still need a way to see them. I think with our technology now, there's a lot we can do remotely, which is great for people. You know, there's some great apps out there. They can get plenty of information. I think we can customize it for the student. So if they leave me in the lesson, I can stay in touch with them. They can even send me a video. I can, create a locker for them and give them a couple of keys, shoot that back to them.
What do you use? What technology for that?
I'm kind of in the midst of just researching that. There's a lot of things out there. I'm partnering with a company, with Thrive Sports, and they've got a good platform with that, and some of their face-to-face via an app and doing that.
I think Marty Chuck is using. Is it Golf Now? No, not Golf. Somebody just told me the other day he was using it, where he videos the entire lesson, puts it in there, as you said, the locker, which made me think, and then they can go in and just watch the entire thing,
which is nice.
So if they're out on the range and they're working their game, did he tell me to move my hand this way, or was it this way? And then they can just
he does do that. I did learn, it seems like a lot, or Coach Now. What does
Coach
he use?
Now? Is it Coach Now?
It might be
I don't
Coach.
know, there's so many, it's so hard to keep
Coach
track
Now.
of.
There's a handful of new apps that are going that way. And I like that. I mean, I think
I've used Huddle Technique quite a bit.
Yeah, Huddle's very good. Absolutely. And I think that's a platform post-COVID, and I think we've seen how many people that are out there getting information off the internet. I still think we need that face-to-face is still, I think, so important.
I agree. I think it's second.
I think as a follow-up, we can do so much remotely and remote coaching, and I think, with some basic launch monitors, people can kind of learn and understand face and path relationships, so that can help them. I think we can teach them as coaches and teachers, understanding people. I think they still have a hard time understanding why the ball goes a certain direction, right? I mean, so if we can help them understand that, they can self-diagnose a little bit better, or at least not work against themselves.
You can put all the hula hoops and spray paint all the curves and arcs and lines, and they look at it just like,
I know,
glass-eyed.
Right. I know. It's so funny. Until they really get that aha moment, and you find what that trigger is for them, and that's communication too. I mean, that's one thing, with technology, I still think there's that art of communication and the people. It's still a people business, and it's still being with that person and that relationship that I think is key. The new with the millennials, and they're a huge market. I think they like the information fast and quick, and I think we've got to be able to adapt to that market as well.
If there's a young teacher out here, young girl or boy listening, and sees you in magazines, sees you on different things and videos, what's the best piece of advice you could give them? That they want to become the next Krista Dunton.
Yeah, I think find a couple good mentors. Doesn't have to be one. Get 2 or 3 that you can learn from. If you like, like I gravitated to Mike and Jim. I think you need a couple, 2 or 3 that have done the homework, have worked the hard way, and then learn. If it's, let's say it's a method, but learn their philosophies, understand it, get something that you can that's tangible, that makes sense to you, and learn it kind of inside and out. And then maybe within that, create your own style, but don't be single focus. Keep your eyes and ears open, learn people skills, learn communication styles, learn how to read people, learn different ways to get a thing done, be creative. I mean, the teachers I mentioned tonight, Craig Shanklin used to watch teach, his energy and creativity. I mean, just Bob Tosky. I mean, the list goes on and on, the people I've learned from. And just the more, if you can take something from so many of them, but get a few key ones, but don't be in a box, stay open-minded and listen to the person and what they're telling you, and make sure that their golf ball is improving. People don't need to get worse before they get better. So you better see a difference in the golf flight and the sound within a few shots. Otherwise, the information's not right, or the person doesn't understand what you're saying, or they just aren't doing it.
Right.
So pay attention to what the golf ball, or if it's an exaggeration, you better tell them, hey, if it goes this way, understand why. If it goes that way, understand why. So I think being accountable to the information you're giving them too is huge. And use the internet, but don't forget about the human being in front of you.
Yeah, because as we said, it's a people business.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to change no matter what technology's out there.
I don't think so.
Not in our lifetime.
We're not robots. Mm-mm. And you can... I've seen technically really good swings that can't play. And I've seen horrible looking swings that understand it and can get the ball around the golf course and score. Mm-hmm. So, and I think teach the whole game. I love putting. I love learning from other putting instructors. I love short game. I've learned so much, from so many in short game, and watching good players and learning from other great short game instructors. It's been huge. And helping people with their short game. Amateurs are so bad.
Horrendous.
And they're trying, understand kind of what they're trying to do. Sometimes what they're trying to do, their intentions, that's kind of, right? That's kind of telling you everything right there. So kind of get inside their head a little bit.
I had a guy come to me one time, and I think he was a 4, and he went up to a 10. And I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "My chipping is either chunkered or bladed."
Yeah.
And so he obviously angled his feet towards the target, and then he had his ball position was so far left.
Yeah.
And I said, "Where's your ball position?" He said, "Middle of my stance." I said, "Let me show you."
Yeah.
And it had to be 4 inches too far forward.
They have no clue.
And it took him 2 or 3 swings, and he just started hitting these perfect clip little chip shots, and that's it. I said, that's it. $150.
Right, exactly. And a lot of times it's not that hard. Mm-mm. We don't, the other advice I would give is go take a lesson in something you're not proficient at. Mm-hmm. Go feel what it feels like to be, a 36 handicap, female that hasn't played, a lot of sports or a lot of, swinging motion type sports or racket type sports. Or
one of the craziest things I did was I took martial arts for a while, did it for a long time, and over the course of it, I had gotten into jiu-jitsu. And going from the golf course and playing, where you know exactly what to do in each situation, it's like you have this massive arsenal of whatever situation comes up, you know what to do. And then I go at night to the class, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
Right. And then if you had to go do that under pressure, or in front of 100 people, you'd be a mess.
Total. It's your brain just goes.
Yeah, I think we have no idea. And, the technology we have kind of gets things so quickly, but we have no idea how the student is processing that and what they come into the situation with. I think you can't assume too much.
No, not at all.
They don't know why a ball hooks. They don't know why it slices. So they have no idea. That's why, people will knock 2D video, but shoot. Most people are very visual. They have no idea that their stance is this wide or this narrow, or like you said, in the ball position, or their shoulders are so cockeyed, or they're like this at address, or what it might be. So sometimes just seeing something, I had no idea that I did that. Sometimes just little things like that. The iPhones are so good right now. Just filming someone, hey, take a quick peek at this, and just their overall image and look on it. The stuff we do is swing callus and seeing how people use the ground and pressure. How far. Sometimes that's crazy where people are on the force plates.
I got to come out and check that out.
You'd love it. It's really cool, especially for amateurs too. But I think just freeing people up is huge, especially with Yeah,
they get so focused and narrow focused because let's say they were an expert in whatever field they were in. And they could have that laser sharp focus. They had the micro and the macro. Yeah. They could sharpen it and they could back off. And they didn't even realize that they would go in and out.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something they're not good at in golf in this situation. They get so focused and it just gets tighter.
It gets tighter and tighter, and they just get freeze. So really, I mean, I do a lot of breathing work with people, and really, where do they store the tension? Is it jaw? Is it shoulders? Is it arms? Is it hands? And when they're on the golf course, where is that going to tend to kind of creep in? How do you create awareness on that? So, and that's the stuff P and Lynn have done with Vision 54 is just kind of creating awareness for the players and being more aware and playing by feel. It's a feel sport, so we still got to play by feel. We can't, think about the time, the lessons you've taken and working on your game, then you go play. You can't get out there and start thinking a million positions. You're screwed. You got to get a sense, feel the motion you want, and then let your body go do it. But it's got to be more athletic and feel-based. But when we go work on it, and teaching people to practice correctly, I think there's a big void there. People they have no clue how to practice efficiently. And some of the research that's been done with block and random practice, it's great stuff out there. And there's so many good games and drills, and our facilities have these great. Look at Berkeley's practice facility. You can hit
second to none.
Every shot. We've got that one green that has 3 bunkers. It's 3 different types of bunkers. One kind of shallow, low lip, one medium, and one high lip. I don't even know if half the members know that you've got 3 totally different types of bunker shots. Go hit a handful of balls at each one and allow your technique to change.
It was like at Belfair, but when Belfair was, you remember this because we might even talked about it, but there were fairways built into the driving range.
I love that. Or that tree. I used to have players shape shots around that tree. And almost go
nobody
around
would
like
practice hitting. They'd hit at a flag instead of, there's 2 designated runways in the driving range for you to practice your driving.
Yeah. Just people get so stuck over the ball. I really make them go through the routine. Let's see what you do. Let's see how you walk into a shot. Do you have a concept of getting aimed correctly? Are you sitting over the ball too long? Are you, what does that look like? So I try to make sure with every lesson, not only get some technical in, but how are you going to take this from here to there? And what are you going to work on to make sure it enhances and keeps improving? And how do you practice correctly? And, how do you practice just learning first and then bringing in different targets and taking a thought to create a feel and working on feels and exaggerating practice swings because your body's going to tend to go back to what it wants it to default. Yeah. So, and how do you, I think we can't feel our default we can't make a change until we can kind of feel that default, right? So until you can kind of really sense that, you go, oh, that's what that felt like, whether I'm too steep or too shallow, whatever it might be. So it's, it's hard, but it's fun. That's why, I'll call my mom and say, I think I figured it out. I think I know. Now I'm really hitting it well. Now I know what I need to do. She's like, oh my God.
Until next week.
Right. Until next week. Right. So it's always, I think, embrace the moment now and where you are. And, remember the things that help you hit the ball better, and stay true to those. A great point when P and Lynn, I said, they call it year 54. So when it's going well, write down what that's like, as a player, whether it's 1 hole, 2 holes, a couple shots, what's that like as a player? It might be, it could be something totally different for you versus me. Is it a technical thought? Is it a grip pressure? Is it a song in your head? Is it, I just felt more limber that day. It might not be, the days, okay, I'm going to get to course X number of time. I'm going to hit this many balls. I'm going to hit this many chips. That's not always a guarantee, right? There's plenty of days we've shown up.
Right. That's really not.
Rolling out of bed, you think you're going to have nothing and you play your best game. Or you prepared so hard and then you get out there and, or days you didn't prepare and, oh my God, I'm hitting it great. So what is it like when it's going well? What's it like? And write it down when it's not going well. And quite often when the wheels fall off, what we tend to do is we keep adding more things. We keep adding things more to the puzzle instead of going, all right, let me look at my page when it's going well. Oh, I've got a feeling of opening the shoulders, or I get that club swinging more left, or I'm looser in my arms, or I'm over the ball less, or whatever it might be. Or it's what we tend to do is we force it. We add more things to the equation when we're struggling. But when it's good, we see it, we feel what we want to do. The mind's probably usually pretty quiet, and we go, and we're in go mode. So we need to embrace that a little bit more and realize what that is, maybe being in that zone and how to get back How to get back to that.
Yeah, allowing yourself to do that. And
Yes.
allowing yourself to make a mistake and not beating yourself up when you hit a bad
and
shot.
not adding more swing thoughts over the ball when you're already struggling. When you're hitting it well, maybe you just have one thought. Mm-hmm. Go back to that thought.
Yeah, most successful people in business or whatever they were in, if they worked their day job the same way they play golf, they would never have reached the level that they got to. And when you explain that to somebody,
that's a good
wow,
point.
Really, I'm doing that. Yeah, that's And then once they get around that, their game just another incline.
Yeah, absolutely.
You ready to do some rapid fire?
Sure.
Then we'll get wrapped up. I know you've had a long day, and I'm sure you want to get home and relax. So the Ryder Cup has a walk-up song now. If you were on the Ryder Cup team, what would be your walk-up song in the first hole?
Oh my gosh. Oh man. I don't know, maybe that's a good question. I could there's that song. I know what it would be, that Macklemore song. We actually used it when I presented on the PGA Teaching Summit with Gail Peterson and Kelly Stencil, myself, and we used that Macklemore song. In the moment, this is the moment.
I'm not good at.
Anyway, you don't want to hear me sing. That'd be a disaster. But either that or Back in Black, or I'd go old school and some AC/DC.
That's a good one. You know, it's crazy. I've started asking that song, and most of the songs that people say are from that era.
Are they really?
Yeah. Best swing in golf. Who has it?
I love Rory's golf swing. I love the flow of it. I really. I would have taken Tiger's in, probably 2000 era. I think probably between Tiger and Rory's are probably my two favorite swings, and they're athletic, they're dynamic, but there's a flow to them too.
Right.
I like the rounded style. I like the rhythm of it, but it's powerful, but not crazy. It's
a full package.
Yeah. Yeah.
If there was a movie made about your life, who would play you?
Oh my gosh. The poor person. I never pity the fool. No idea. When I was growing up and I was a little league, I pitched quite a bit. I would say my glory days at 12 years old, and I struck out 17 out of 18 boys in a 6-inning game. It was in Sports Illustrated and Faces in the Crowd. And
I remember that.
I used to get yelled at, is this Bad News Bears and whatnot. So
Tatum O'Neal
left. And Tatum O'Neal plays. So maybe I'd throw Tatum back in there.
That'd be pretty good.
But I don't know. And it's funny. I had a lesson today, and this guy, he came and he said, my son, was telling me to go to either, you or Andrew or, maybe Dave at Colleton. And he said, maybe go see the female because, women don't, he said, don't take this the wrong way. He said, they don't play a lot of baseball, and so they don't really know what it's like. And I kind of bit my tongue and kind of chuckled that didn't tell him that I was from a baseball family. And, my dad coached, for 35 years at Stanford. I grew up playing baseball more so than golf. So his son said, go see her, because if she's figured it out, and is helping people, she might know what she's talking about. That was kind of funny.
The best or worst lesson you ever gave? Because I know coaches always remember one or the other, if not both. One that they'd always love to have back, or one that they're just like, that was...
Yeah. There's been a lot of great ones. There's been a lot of bad ones too. Probably the bad ones are when you just feel, and I think every coach could relate to this, when you feel like, oh God, I shouldn't have opened my mouth and given them that one more thought. Like you can just see
that was the straw.
Just the overflow in kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. So sometimes just not knowing when to pull back and let the student evolve a little bit. Mm-hmm. Those would probably be the worst ones, when I just either get too far ahead or kind of put too much out there too quickly. And the best ones, it's like a plumber. It's knowing where to hit that pipe. So sometimes it's just that one little thing. I had a great lesson today, or to me it was so obvious, and it was one little fix, and the guy's like, oh my God, like so easy, So it's knowing the one thing that's going to make the biggest difference in the golf ball and make it easiest on the student. And they're almost like throwing a one-hitter kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
So.
All right, let's see. A few more. Dream foursome.
Hogan, Tiger, Rory, and me. One more.
Yeah,
maybe,
of course you're going to be in your own foursome.
I don't know. Maybe Derek Jeter.
Baseball.
Yeah, I threw a little baseball. And he just had so much success. He played with a lot of passion. Wasn't a big power hitter. Came to work every day and played. Huh?
He always did the little things.
He always did the little things. Play hard for his team. He kind of expected to win. He had a lot of success early. Mm-hmm. Worked hard. Was fired up. Was always positive. Just great energy.
Let's see. Last book that you read. Because you're always looking to grow.
Yeah, now I'm probably listening more than I'm reading. There is one. What is the name of that? What am I reading right now? Of course, it's a golf book. I'm probably reading more and learning, just more on how people learn. Mm-hmm. So learning styles, and I probably have too many books that I start and maybe don't finish, which is a bad MO. And listening, but I probably have a pile bedside and a handful of them, and they're all probably more on learning and practice, or how to kind of teaching people how to practice better. I do like to read on other things other than golf. It just seems like some of the golf things help so much too. There's so many good things.
That's another thing. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not at the golf
course? Being on the beach. I think walking the beach, running on the beach. Got 2 dogs, and I probably, if I can, we're so fortunate in Hilton Head. I can start a day. I can drop the kids off at school in Sea Pines. In 5 minutes, I'm on the beach with the dogs, running out there at low tide. They're running free. I'm listening to music. And I can still get home, shower, boom, and get to work and teach the rest of the day. I mean, to me, that's kind of an ideal way. So I love fitness. I love running. I love biking. My knee's getting a little banged up, but I think you need that release and that time to think. And that's probably usually when I do all my kind of think is if I'm riding my bike or running, mm-hmm. and I can kind of slow down and have some of that quiet time. But I love our beaches on Hilton Head. And I think whether I'm running the dogs or walking and just being out there in the mornings when the sun's coming up and the birds are flying. I mean, it's so magical. And now that the tourists are kind of leaving and we're kind of getting our beaches back, that's kind of nice.
And the weather's perfect.
Yeah, so I do enjoy that.
Let's see. Most used app on your phone?
Probably Facebook, but after watching The Social Dilemma.
I've heard of that. I need to see it.
Boy, I'm pulling back a little bit on that. Probably Facebook, just a lot to see what other people are doing, whether it's teach in the industry and teaching, whether it's friends of mine, whether it's college friends, whether it's high school friends, but I also will think, boy, if I just spent X amount of time or minutes going through Facebook and reading what other people are doing, what if I really spent that time on myself, or finished my website, or did something to help my teaching program, or spent that time with my kids? And, I'm probably trying to be conscious with screen life and phone time, and that's probably one thing where I'm not as good on the teach. Because when I go home, I try not to keep that stuff around because, you need that one-on-one with your family at that time. So
yeah, I found it, and I only have the 2 dogs, and, dogs are here depending on breed and size, 10 to 15 years. And it's like, okay, they're 7. Do I really need to scroll another tweet or Facebook thing? If they're sitting at my feet and looking up at me, it's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah,
play.
Go do something, or go do something for yourself. So you start to look at that and think, okay, how much time am I spending?
Right.
So in this industry, though, I mean, you do need to put some I mean, that's where it's exhausting. It's like you're out there one-on-one, and then you got to do your promotion stuff. I mean, I need to be better about building people around me and getting more people to do other things, and probably getting someone to help hire to push some of the social media stuff so I don't always have to do it, or
Right.
build the content, let them get the stuff out there, because I mean that's like a whole nother
Just have someone come video your lessons.
side job.
You
yes.
doing lesson, and then
Yeah.
let them edit it and
And
push it out where it needs
there.
to go.
Yeah, because it takes the people that are doing it well are spending a fair amount of time.
When I do a
doing
podcast, I don't do the editing. I've got someone to do that. But when I do the summary and the artwork for the thumbnail and write up all the other things and then push it all out there,
Yeah.
it's a half a day,
Right.
at least per episode.
Right.
And I'm lucky enough I have the time to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was really busy,
Yeah.
God, I'd have
I
to
mean,
get
I
somebody to
respect
do
the
it.
teachers that are out there, and I know all of them. They do a great job, again, in pushing out content, not only to promote themselves, but helping other teachers learn and promoting their brand and their students. And I mean, it helps. I mean, that's probably where I need to get better at, and I recognize that. So that's kind of a goal for the winter. But, I think we also, I've just with, I think you look at our teenagers in society. I think we need to break away from those phones.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a fine line. I think we need to put those down, and we need the face-to-face, because I just see where our youth today and teenagers are on them, and teen suicide rates are up, and
Maybe I'll go become a hand surgeon, because all the thumbs.
totally, or
kids
neck
are-
from
and
people
neck.
being hunched over.
Yep.
So you need to watch The Social Dilemma. And if anyone out there that has kids or hasn't seen it, it's a great movie. Some people will have a flip
Is that
side
on
to it, but
Netflix or Prime?
I don't remember.
I'll
it might
look
be
it up.
might be Netflix, but it's well done. It will you will second guess, and how manipulative social media can be behind the scenes,
Yeah,
and
it's
how
just
much they
built
are
on-
tracking
on,
what you're doing
addiction.
and every minute. Yes. And how much time and what our like I said, what our youth is doing. I mean, it's certainly. I mean, the technology is not going away. So, how do we use it in a healthy way? But how do we manage and set limits and don't let our kids get consumed by it, and still keep some of the ways we all grew up,
Right.
and blend the two worlds, I guess, together would be the ideal.
Last one, and everybody gets this one. Greatest of all time, Tiger or Jack?
Boy. That's a tough one. I might say Tiger, just because of the era and the number of the depth of competition that he played so much of his career again, and just how much he dominated, and just the way everyone was going to the course playing for second. I mean, I think he had probably more of a mental dominance and edge. And there might be people that argue with me, which is fine, than maybe Jack did. I mean, I'm sure he was dominant.
Yeah, remember people you could take a bet. You could take Tiger or the field.
Right. That's what I mean. And granted, the players were there. I just think he had such an apparent domination over them that to me is world. I mean, has Jack won more majors? Yes. Will Tiger get there? Who knows? They both, Jack, obviously the players he played against, crazy good. Mm-hmm. I just think Tiger's dominance, the way he did it, was pretty unbelievable.
Found it very interesting that all those young guys were, when Tiger was hurt, before he made his comeback, saying, when they're rising in their career, I'd love to be able to face Tiger. Hope he gets back and healthy.
Yeah.
And then when that tour championship happened, and he ran them all down and then beat them, and all those young guys were like, oh my God,
that
this
was pretty
is
cool.
ridiculous. And then of course the Masters, and it just took it to a whole new level.
Yeah. And I think it's so different now, and I think a player like Rory and maybe they're making so much money now. They're maybe seeing more of a balance in life. I mean, unfortunately for Tiger, he sacrificed. Winning was so important to him. Right. It was everything. And I would probably say not in a healthy...
Paid that price. He
paid
a very
that
heavy
price. And not everyone wants that, and so and not everyone's wired like that. I'm not saying that's what we should all strive to be for well-balanced human beings. Mm-hmm. There were many that would say, obviously he wasn't, and what he went through, shows that. And I think a lot of people, I respect Rory in the sense that, he loves his friends, his countrymen, Ireland, married, child.
I think Rory saw himself starting to trend that way and realized this is just an opinion, that he saw, okay, here's what's going to happen if I continue to push this way, and here's what I have to give up, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I think, in a sense, why would you? I mean, unless I think Tigers is a different. I think he's wired in a whole
Rory
different...
had the benefit, and not that I'm not any Tiger fans. I'm not saying Rory's as good as Tiger, but he was on that trajectory at 5 majors by the time he was 23, and almost had the career Grand Slam. But it's just like he has too many other things he enjoys. There's more to life, and I think having Tiger ahead of him and seeing, or at least, and I think he and Tiger are friends. Yeah. Seeing that and what Tiger had to give up, and I don't think Rory wanted to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And I think he keeps a healthy balance with that. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so much money, these guys are making out there. Shoot, they could play 5-6 years, go raise a family, go do something else. I mean, if you're smart with your money and your investments, and
once they're vested, the pension fund is amazingly great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're once they're vested in that, they could retire and just wait and if they lost all their money from playing, their pension fund would be
I don't know if we'll ever see
healthy
someone like that. I don't know who's that hungry and that to sacrifice that much to go after that much, especially as good as the competition's gotten. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at now, and there's 50 guys in a week that could go out there.
And that's across all spectrums. Like they're comparing Elon Musk to Steve Jobs, and I think somebody said it was easier when Elon was doing PayPal and then when he started Tesla, because he could pick almost what he wanted. Now there's so much competition in Silicon Valley and around the world that you don't have the free pick.
Absolutely.
And you go back to the Steve Jobs era. Well, the challenge then, you had to pick who you wanted to, but then it was like, okay, who are you going to find to do this type of work?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it has its own challenges in each era.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where can people follow you? They want to...
on Instagram, Krista Dunton, pretty easy. Twitter at Krista Dunton. Facebook, Krista Dunton Golf. You check out my website. That's just getting relaunched. So you will see a lot more of me on social media and YouTube channel. Keep loading more videos in there. I do some work with Golf Magazine, which has been great. Mm-hmm. Enjoy that. Golf.com, doing some pieces for them.
And I'll have all the links to these in the summary. People just click on them.
Yep, that's great.
Any big schools you have coming up? Or
so we are, like I said, so anyone looking to work on their game, we're doing 3-day golf schools at Berkeley Hall. Not huge, really individualized, 4 people, kind of a 4-to-1 student ratio. If we get 8 people, we'll bring in another instructor. 6 would work too, but 1 to 4 is great. We've got a staff that we can bring in more, but it's 3 days of golf instruction, 2 full days, 1 half day. Stay in our cottages, eat the great food at Berkeley Hall. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 amazing Tom Fazio courses. Be able to do instruction from 9 till about 1. I get on the golf course and play with you in the afternoon, and then let you keep playing if you want to keep playing. Some dinners in there, and then a half day on the 3rd day. So really a great way to work on your golf game, tune it up without ripping it apart, but fix the parts that need to be fixed to get you functioning better. Like we talked about a lot earlier, working not just only on the swing, but on your mental process and how you work on the short game and the scoring parts of the game. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a well-rounded golf school and not just golf swing, and not cookie cutter. You have to do it our way, and this is the 7 steps for a better backswing kind of thing. But,
if someone want to sign up, do they go to your website?
They can go to my website or Berkeley Hall. I'd probably go Berkeley Hall. If they go Berkeley Hall, the information's on the website. There's a video with information and a link to sign up on Berkeley Hall. BerkeleyHallClub.com.
I'll put that in the summary as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. This has been awesome, Chris. You've always been supportive of the
I know,
and
I know we've talked about this for so long, so I'm really honored to be able to get on here and talk with you.
Scheduling with this type of industry is the challenge, but like I tell everybody, if it's 3 days, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 years, whatever, so I get you on, it'd be great.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's Paradigm, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.